But today, because we're going to have two of us speak today, we're going to forego music, and Jeff and I are going to talk a little bit today about the experience that we had at the Oasis Summit at the end of last month. The Oasis Network had a group summit, national summit in Denver that wasn't just exclusive to leaders, but it was open to anyone who wanted to attend. And they're going to have another one next year, the year after that. I believe that plans are already in the works to get the next one going. But there were some really good insights, I think, that Jeff and I were able to glean from those meetings, and so we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that. So, Jeff, do you mind starting off? I don't have my computer booted up, so I didn't get it booted up with my notes. So if you could start, and Jeff's going to go for a few minutes, talk about the things that he went through in his breakout sessions and a couple of the keynotes, and then we'll switch over to him. Do you want to start with that? Okay.
A 10-minute timer here. Let's see. So we're going to kind of tag team this since we purposely went to different breakout sessions. We made sure that maybe there was one the same breakout session at the same time, just so that we get as much information as we could. I just wanted to start with some general stuff about the conference. If you have a chance to go, absolutely go. It was, like in the next few years, it was so much fun. It's not just for leaders, it was for everybody. Houston and Kansas City especially had a lot of people there. There weren't just the board members and the leaders and that. The one impression I came back from with overall was that the quality of people in Houston and Kansas City that they have in charge of it is just super high. I mean, we already have met, some of us have met Helen and Mike when they came out here about a year and a half ago, right as we were launching. But I got the chance to meet some of the other people. People in charge of like the humanitarian projects and that, some of the other groups, and like the head of Toronto Oasis was there, and every one of them was super high caliber, very impressive. I felt like the organization's in really, really good hands, and they tell me that these guys have been doing a lot of thinking about how best to build secular communities. I was going to focus in on Greta Vospers. So he's going to talk about Mike House's. Helen Austin also gave a keynote, but we're going to forgo talking about her keynote, assuming that when she's here in 2 weeks, she'll give a lot of that same information. Let her do it in her own words, though it was really, really good. The main keynote I wanted to talk about was Greta Vospers. I don't know if you guys know who she is. She is the leader of Toronto Oasis. And they've got a really interesting story up there. She was the head of a congregation, and I think it's Episcopalian. They're the group that had kind of a schism. One group wanted to be more liberal, more open, and one group wanted to stay more conservative. And hers was one of the more liberal denominations. Allowed women in the priesthood, allowed gays in the priesthood. And she was the main pastor, main preacher of an entire congregation up there. And did this for many years, and at some point she realized, I don't believe in God anymore. And she just could not let herself get up and preach when she didn't believe in that. So she's like, I'm going to give a sermon, maybe my last sermon, where I'm going to get up and talk about that. Say, I'm done with believing in God, and I love you all, I want to stay together as a community. And she's like, it's probably my last sermon, they're not going to accept me. She did it, and almost all of her congregation came up and said, we're with you. Wherever you're going, we're with you. She did get, let go from the Episcopalian church, so she's not an official preacher in that. But she took her whole congregation, and they became this atheist, still community, still congregation, and after a little while found Oasis and joined up. So suddenly we had an entire community already formed there to make Toronto Oasis. And actually, now there's a second Toronto community starting. It wasn't just her congregation. So that was really exciting, and I was very impressed with her. She talked about, the subject is, what are the nuns shopping for? So I don't know if you guys have heard the Nuns Go Shopping is the exact title. The NONES. People that say that my religion is none in census data. It's the fastest rising group right now in especially among younger generations. And so she talked about how we reach out to them. What are they looking for? What do they want? And a lot of them are not necessarily finding community, finding the need for community. So she just kind of threw it out to the crowd what we think the nuns are looking for, and she added some to it as well. People came up with community, friendship, places to serve, learning, safety, ethics in the 21st century. You know, we always hear, but I need to raise my kids ethically with good morals. So that's a very important thing, especially as you start to have a family. Personal growth, music, and she pointed out these are all human needs. And while religion fills these, it's not like they're religious needs or anything specific to only a religion to fill. We can fill these too. One thing she did that was interesting is she said, let me talk about the elements of prayer, talk about it without religious terms. And so, you know, prayer is there for a reason. Prayer works for people for a reason. And so she talked about the way they used to teach it in her religion, but then she changed the words from religious words to secular words. And she came up with 4 elements of prayer: awe, self-reflection, reflection on who we are, holding ourselves to a standard, being accountable when we fall short, consistency, integrity. So those 2, gratitude, and then naming our needs, and then coming up with solutions to them. And some of these are easy to do just as, of course, in normal life, but a lot of those are easy to forget to do. And especially, I don't know if any of you have transitioned from religious to non-religious like me, I find myself not doing some of these things anymore. They're just automatic, part of the system, part of the ritual you did. And so she said, these are the kinds of things that we need to help people do in a secular way. Find a place where we can get people back to doing that. I know that when a lot of people sign up for our volunteers, almost everybody writes service. They want to get outside themselves. They want to serve, and we need to do more of that as a group. She said that community is not her end game, but a means to bringing about these needs, fulfilling these needs in people. Self-reflection. So, and we've talked about things like mindfulness, meditation, and that's often a common way. And to me, that's very similar to prayer. Maybe you don't do some of these things though, right? I still don't know if in a mindfulness meditation, on a lot of self-reflection, but I may not express gratitude, name my needs, and think through those things on a regular basis. That prayer has you doing all the time. So she made a point that we need to learn a lot from liberal religious denominations. They're on the decline. That's where the nuns are going from, largely. And maybe this is her bias because she was in a liberal religious denomination. Our area is not necessarily liberal religious denominations, but probably more conservative ones that people are leaving. Sometimes it's the more liberal thinkers as far as, I'm not saying conservative liberal as far as politics, but just as far as openness to change of ideas versus not. That leave the LDS religion, predominant one here. As these denominations, she put it this way, that the denominations are shrinking and they're going to continue to shrink, and in some ways that's sad if that human need is not being filled by another group. So she's saying we need to find the language to approach these liberal religious denominations and ask them what they want to leave as their legacy, and how can we fulfill that? How can we take the good that was in them and apply that to our secular communities? And then she made a point that I took a note of here. All the well-being of religious communities has more to do with how much they get together than beliefs themselves. And I really believe that too. And this is one thing why we're trying to add in outside of Sunday gatherings. It's one thing we've been bad at as a community here, because we've had to work so much on just the Sunday meetings. Our pint night, I think our second pint night had 16 people at it, and there's definitely a need there to get together. And so that's actually another thing that I want to talk about that I got from the summit. Lance and I got there, and about one day into it, we kept hearing this word community groups. And we're like, okay, what's that? After it kept being brought up as a theme, we realized we need to ask them what they're even talking about. is something we don't do here, obviously. So one idea that I think started in Kansas City Oasis, there was an a previously evangelical couple that said, hey, one thing that evangelical groups do is this thing called community groups. They get together once a week, they meet and do scripture study. So they were thinking of it as you know, somebody tried to help us understand it by going, think of seminary. We're like, ooh, yuck. But what these guys have done is they'll have 8 to 10 people get together in geographic locations. Like if we did it here, it'd be like to be an Oregon group, and a Pro group, and a Springfield group. In fact, I really want to host a Springfield group, that's where I live. They get together once a week for just a few weeks, just 5 or 6 weeks is what they'll do. Have an icebreaker, maybe they build up some curriculum, so a 6-minute video you can watch on some subject, and you chat about it, or you don't. You just, what if the group decides, oh, this is boring, let's just talk. And a lot of, especially the people that came from an evangelical background, were really skeptical of this idea. I talked to quite a few people that said, yeah, when we heard about this, we're like, how's that going to work? How's that going to work? And after they did it, they're like, oh, we loved it. It was great. It was perfect. It built community in geographic locations. And so when you got to a meeting, you knew something. You'd already met with 6 or 7 people. They time box it, so it's only 5 or 6 weeks. So the host, whoever volunteers to host, doesn't, that's the only commitment they have. It's a few weeks. But it is every week. This is something we want to bring here. Lance and I came back really excited to bring it here, but then we had to do the whole moving locations thing and wanted to get really high-powered speakers on the dock for that. So I'm not sure when we'll adopt this here, but I'm really excited to do it. Holly here in the front row already kind of struck onto this idea. She had started doing a group at her house meeting to discuss things. And I really think that was filling that same niche, that same need. So if that's interesting to anybody, we can jump in and go with curriculum that they're doing this time, which is this time they're doing life skills. Previously they've done philosophy, and I forget, they've done 3 groups so far. Started out with just like 4 or so groups, and screaming kids. And it's grown to 10 groups in Kansas City and 8 or 9 in Houston. So it's been very popular and growing. So that's something that we looked at and said, ooh, that's really cool, we want to bring that back. Well, he's helping me figure out the kids, I'll add a few more. So the other keynote, since I have a few seconds to add on, there's a guy named Johnny, ex-Muslim that's been part of Houston Oasis since the beginning. And he talked a lot about diversity and the problems of the diversity in secular communities. And largely it's a numbers game, right? There's percentage of people leaving religion, a lot of the people of color, different backgrounds are very religious still, just by the numbers. And so one thing we talk about is we need to keep talking about it at Oasis. We need to find ways to connect more to other demographics. So if you know people that you got friends, you have any ideas on how we can go and advertise to other groups. I was thinking here like Latinos. I know that at Salt Lake Pride we have a lot of Latino families come to the booth. We're really excited about it. Got to bring those guys in. Will you? Oh, yeah, you got a boyfriend who's Latino, right? And so one thing we're hoping was like, maybe when we start getting more marketing materials, maybe sometimes we can do this in Spanish when it's in the local live markets. They're in this area, they're often quite Catholic. But there's a lot, at least from Salt Lake Pride, it seems like there are a lot that would be wanting to find some other alternative community. So, and just the point that diversity makes everything better. We see things from other points of view, and enriches our community. So, Lance, you ready?
Ready.
Well, thanks. That's what I got.
Once again, thanks for your patience with the kids' noise. We are still dialing that in.
It's not overpowering this.
Okay.
Not for me, anyway. I've been close to this.
As a speaker, it felt like it because I was behind it.
I think I'm still in that parent mode I have a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old where any kid sound just makes me go, what's going on? And so maybe I'm a little hypersensitive to it. But thanks, Jeff. Thanks for all your thoughts and your notes there. And I'm sorry I missed on some of it. So I'm going to lay out really quickly what the breakout sessions that I was able to be a part of, but I'm going to first start going through a talk from one of the other co-founders, which was Mike House. I was part of the breakout sessions that included the marketing programs, the kids programs, and the compassionate care. And the marketing and kids program, we came away with a lot of, or at least I came away with a lot of takeaways, a lot of action items that I think would be really good for our Oasis group specifically. The compassionate care thing was an interesting meeting, and I think that if you're religious in this area, like if you're LDS, like my wife who's in the back, or if you are non-religious or part of like the Utah Valley Postmodern community, we have a lot of robust community around here in a lot of ways, and that part in a lot of ways is kind of taken care of. And so I'll touch on that one a little bit, but I'm gonna hit on the other piece a little bit more. I think that John, did you talk about John's talk at all? We'll let John talk about his talk. I may touch on a couple parts, but the talk that was most interesting to me was Mike House's talk. He started off by talking about the history of humans going back about 30 or 50,000 years ago. It was something in that range, right? Am I close on that? At the time, there was a huge drought on the planet. People were less and less able to survive in more desert regions like they used to. There were fewer resources to subsist on. There weren't as many animals to hunt. There wasn't as much vegetation to go after. And a lot of the water reserves that people had kind of dried up. And so there was huge global calamity, and all of the human race had basically moved to or survived in South Africa. Whereas everywhere else on the planet, from what we can tell, everybody had died, had gone away at that point. And so the people that we are now, the human race as we know it now, effectively owes their existence to the small group of, it was something like 5,000 to 10,000 humans that survived just on the edge of the coastline in South Africa. And so we owe a lot of what we are, our emotional makeup, our mental makeup, our physical makeup, to that group of people that survived in that area. And there's a few takeaways that we have from that group of people. We learned a lot about our emotional evolution. We learned about, and I'll go into that one in a minute. We learned that from those times is when we began to evolve logic and reasoning in ways that we hadn't before. We had evolved. I think that one of the things that Mike said that struck me that I've talked a lot about with my wife. It makes her mad when I talk about it, but it's really interesting to me to know that the idea of like love for a child is different than what we think it is. It's not, we were all taught, or at least I was taught. I'm going to approach this from a very evolutionary standpoint and non-religious standpoint, but we've all been taught that love is endowed upon us. It's a divine characteristic that we all have, and yet what we know from this evolution and from looking at this group of people and from the archaeological evidence and whatnot is that love is something that we but something that we have that we evolved that helped us to be better parents, to help perpetuate our race a lot better than we used to. And so I think the quote that he said was, "You don't actually love your children it's a selfish drive that you have to make sure that your DNA survives, which is a bleak way of looking at it, but it's true in a lot of ways based on the data that we have. And so, there were other things that we learned from that group. We began to evolve more need for reason and for logic. And probably the most important part of the reasoning and the logic, if you look at studies that talk about why people use reasoning and use logic, is because those are the tools that we use to cooperate with the groups around us. If we just went off of our kind of innate senses, you may work together as a group, you may not work together as a group. But if you do work together as a group, and you're able to think, plan, execute ways to make that happen, you're going to survive more efficiently than maybe a bear who goes and tries to survive by himself. And from that evolution, we began to form communities. We began to form groups that worked outside of our kind of DNA lineages. It wasn't just mama taking care of cubs. It wasn't just mama and papa taking care of cubs. It was mama and papa working with mama and papa to make sure that all the cubs were taken care of. It was then getting together, and I watched a film on Netflix. It's called Great Human Odyssey, I think, if I remember right. And it talks about this group in South Africa, how they found in some of these dwellings that they had these little piles of pigments, these little piles of what looked like just a little repositories of what looked like colored dust. And it's not edible. I don't think it would hurt you if you ate it, at least according to them. But there wasn't really any practical use for it in terms of survival, except for body painting and for art. And so we learned from that group that as they were evolving into a more advanced species, which was partially due to the fact that they were eating a good fish diet that had a lot of omega-3s that was helping with brain development and helping people to become smarter, more intelligent. Because of that higher intelligence and that want to connect with other humans, they were using art, body painting, drawings, writing forms even, to communicate with each other and to connect with each other. And so what that shows, I think, and a lot of what Mike was trying to infer, was that we were trying to, as humans now, we always have a need to try and make sure that we connect. We can try and go at it alone, and religion has done a really good job of creating opportunities for us to connect. But as more and more people become part of the nut bucket, as more people become part of maybe religious or spiritual, but not part of a religion, there's still a need to form groups, kind of like what Oasis has today, and listen to kids scream in the room next to us. And so I think that's important, and that connects with a lot of the things that we talk about as we try to get speakers. Thank you. As we try to get speakers, as we try to bring in musicians, all of this is an attempt to help us satisfy a lot of our basic human needs, for making sure that we use community to solve for a lot of our problems that we have, not just in the day-to-day, but maybe even long-term and even afterlife type of questions. So, as a result of that, I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that we went through in the breakout sessions, and it's crazy because I believe it was Great Human Odyssey. The documentary? Yeah, Great Human Odyssey. And I can even post that on Facebook. If I connect it to the internet, I could do it right now. But it's on Netflix. It's excellent. It makes you think a lot about the decisions that you make right now and why you make those decisions right now. It even talks about how, a lot of our love for sports, and that comes from a lot of those people that evolved into spear hunters, and how, we love it. There's something appealing and even a what's the right word? A sexually enticing aspect to seeing a guy be able to throw something and hit the target that he's going for, because that's how you got food. That's how you were able to know that you would survive, because of the guy who was able to spear the animal he was going for. You knew that you were going to survive and your kids were going to survive, so that's a good mate, you know, things like that. That's why we love football. And so, really interesting things in that way. Or basketball, if you're able to throw it to a random metal ring. So, anyway, look at it. It's really fun. It's about an hour and a half or 2 hours, I think. So, but it's really fun. So, talking about a few more practical things. Anybody have questions about that piece? No? Okay. I had the chance to sit down with all of the marketing teams from all the other groups, including the Salt Lake group, the Texas groups, and the Kansas City group. And this is probably going to get a little bit into the nitty-gritty. I do marketing by trade. I do digital marketing, and so I help massive, huge companies get their products and their services to show up on Google and Yahoo and Facebook and Microsoft, MSN.com and Bing and stuff like that. And so that's what I do. And so I had a chance to sit down with other marketing professionals to see what they've been doing with their groups. And a lot of it kind of was, in some ways, a basic class on marketing for us as we sat down and talked about what was helpful. We need to define, number one, we kind of need to define who we need to be marketing to. You know, who wants to come to Oasis, right? It's obviously not going to be the bishop of your ward. You know, it's going to be somebody who's looking for a community who may not necessarily be in a position to have a community, or it may be somebody who wants to find additional community to supplement the religion that they're in. And so we probably have some work to do on that to define it a little bit better. The problem is that even if you look around here, or if you look at any of our other gatherings, there's a huge demographic of different type of people who are going to come to Oasis, or if you've been to like UVPM gatherings, or even to a random LDS board, there's a huge demographic of people. And so how do you find a commonality amongst a group of people who would be diverse as what we have here, or within Utah Valley, that would want to be part of a secular community, right? And so those are interesting questions that I think need to be talked about. As we try marketing initiatives and we test those out, we have to go through that process of defining, testing, seeing the results, redefining, testing, seeing the results again. Do you have a question?
No, just remind me of else.
Okay. Some of the basic necessities of marketing in terms of actual physical implementation would be things like email marketing. We're working on getting an email list together. And so that's one. Social media, we focus mostly on Facebook. I think Facebook's probably the most important right now. Twitter may be somewhere in there, but not as important as Facebook. Working better on making sure that we have creatives. It's not really easy to get creatives in terms of like photos and videos, because like I can agree to have myself videoed, or like one of the speakers can agree to have things videoed, but it's hard to go to each and every single person in a group, be like, can I take your picture, can I take your picture, that kind of thing, and get agreement, you know, because not everybody is ready to say that they're part of it, or have even attended a secular community. And so after that would be physical marketing. If we have flyers that we want to go post in Starbucks or in any coffee shops or at a grocery market, anything like that. And so I think I'm gonna keep it at that. The kids program, I think that we know our main problem with the kids program, that's getting the sound in there. I think we can focus on that and then move on from there. And so that's our big thing. Our biggest thing, to be honest, was getting a new place where the kids could be over there, the coffee could be here, and we could sit down and eat. And so I'm going to call it good at that. If you have other questions about what we talked about, feel free to come talk to me. So, is it Q&A time? Okay, so let's do Q&A time. Holly, go.
Okay, as far as marketing goes, I don't know if I can answer for anybody else, but for myself,
Yeah.
I have such incredible passion for the idea of nonviolent communication, civil dialogue, and the Latin community walk, right? And until I can realize, it's just starting to hit me lately, that Oasis can be a forum for me to fully expand my passion in those areas.
Yeah.
And if I think of it that way, I don't go, oh, it's Oasis, it's a community thing, I gotta go because I want to be a part of the community. It's because this is where the dreams that I already have can explode. And I think if people can see that, if their passions can be manifest here
think that's a good point. The question, I guess, would be how,
How, yeah.
right? Because I agree with you. There's not really a limitation at this point in terms of what somebody can go and try and create in a community, right? There's, whether it's that, whether it's trying to create better service opportunities that are less attached to spirituality or dogma kind of thing, but more just humanist ideas and connecting with people around you. I think that if somebody has a passion for those, we have a little bit of money and we have people who are engaged in that kind of thing, and so I think that those are possibilities. The question would be, how do we do that, right? How do we actually convey that idea?
How do we bring, to think of this as a place where good can explode?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Scott, you look like you're dying to ask me a question.
If we don't have other questions, I just noticed in my notes, one other thing I didn't talk about, I want to at least briefly mention, and maybe we'll get somebody out to talk about it as part of it. The Greater Oasis Network has a humanitarian project that they're doing. So they decided to focus on one big project and have it be the whole group. I saw stuff about this, and I always just assumed it was a local to Houston thing, and so I just didn't pay attention to it on Facebook. And found out, no, it's the entire network. It's open to anybody. After hearing Michelle Morgan's speech, I wanted to go. So what they do is they build teams to go down to Nicaragua. There's already a group down there that is building sustainable wheelchairs for handicapped people. So some of these handicapped people down there, if they don't have a way to get around, their family has to carry them until they get too big. It affects everybody's way of life. It can be a real drag on their economy, their family, everything. And so a wheelchair can be a life-changing thing. But they're also prone to break and all this stuff. There are already two groups. One group that's building sustainable wheelchair design. It's really cheap. Can be repaired with local supplies. And then another group that's already distributing those. And so our group is going down and taking those to the other coast of Nicaragua. It's underserved. No groups are going over there. And they brought 10 or 15 people down there just 2 weeks ago and distributed 30 or so, I think it was like 60 wheelchairs to different people. And then checked up on some of the ones they distributed on previous groups. They're going to do another one sometime this year, I think. After listening to Michelle talk about this, like I said, I'm like, man, I got to brush up on my Spanish and I want to go. So it just sounded really, really cool, really life-changing. Everybody just got back from it and they're posting stuff on Facebook. Life-changing experience.
It looked pretty rad, yeah.
So we might get Michelle to come out and talk about that. And she said, hey, fly me out, let's do this. But I was very pleased from it. So.
That one looks really fun if you're, it does cost a few bucks that you do need to save up, but you do get to go down, hang out with a group of Oasians and help a bunch of people who have no way of getting around. So
and it is an adventure. It's not for the it's not for the faint of heart because anything can happen down there. Flying on small planes.
They hate us down there. They hate us.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We funded Noriega.
Well, that is true.
Yeah.
Yep.
They hate us.
You said a few dollars? Like what?
Didn't she say, I don't want to name a number because I may be wrong. I thought 1,300, which
1,300.
maybe 1,800. It was way less than I thought when she said it was expensive.
I thought 2,000 was the number.
Okay, 18, maybe just rounded up, maybe it was 2,000, maybe I rounded down. So I thought it was going to be 3,000 or 4,000.
I say that.
So
I say that facetiously. Yeah. It's
you
do have to save up for it kind of thing. So yeah. But it looked, one thing that the Utah groups, or at least our group, hasn't done quite as good a job of is getting service opportunities set up. Part of that's because some of the go-to service opportunities are kind of monopolized, which isn't a bad thing, but the LDS Church basically has an overabundance of wards that can go work at the food pantry, and trying to schedule a time for us to go there is basically impossible because they have all the manpower, or womanpower, sorry. They have all the people power they need to get that taken care of. And so, you know, trying to find some of those. I do know that I had somebody who was at the wine tasting party this last week contact me and say that there are some needs up in Salt Lake. Some of the churches up there are trying to get more soup lines, clothing drives, things like that in place, and they do need just people, just hands and feet on the ground kind of thing to come help. So trying to work some of those out, but that's where if you are, or you know somebody who is interested in wanting to try and help with service and working on getting service opportunities for people who want to try and do that without necessarily the connection to church or having to do it because you're spiritually obligated or something like that, but you do it because you want to. We're trying to get more people who can help with that.
So speaking
and we
of
have
which,
some of the resources to help with
I
that.
should mention Tracy. Tracy's here. Tracy you're going to be our service team lead, right? So we just need to build a team. We're right kind of at team building. Oasis does everything based on teams. I got a speakers team and there's a kids team. It's high time we build a service team. Tracy has volunteered to take the lead on that and has a lot of really good ideas on different projects we could do ourselves. So, no other questions?
I think that's all we have.
Before the kids go too strict.
Scott.
There's not a question on the presentation, but you talked about maybe volunteering to go down into Texas and help out there. Whenever you go into a situation where resources have been depleted by natural disaster, you need to carry all your resources with you. Otherwise, you don't help, you become drained. And in many cases, it may be more helpful to send money
To like Red Cross and some of those organizations on the
like
ground.
that, or if there's a specific organization you want to support, like Oasis, you contact them and send money to them.
It might be that, you know, the amount of money I spent on a plane ticket would be better sent to the Red Cross.
Absolutely.
So I think that what we're hoping for, I do think that David posted an article on the, did you see the chat? There is a leadership chat in the Oasis network group. If you'd like to be part of that, let me know and I can add you to the Facebook chat. But one of our board members posted a link to an article that talked about some of the things that you can do. Donate to Red Cross. There are a couple GoFundMes or similar types of donations that you can do. I do know that there are going to be people who are going to want to try and like send a truck down or something like that if they can send resources down that maybe wouldn't have to require sending money down, then resources being purchased and then pulled in. If we have people, I know that we have people who are headed down who may take like a duffel bag and just drop it off since they're going to be down there anyway, kind of thing. And so
If
those
that
are,
still happens.
if it still happens. I have heard from a couple other people who had planned on being down there anyway. And so like we do have people who are going to be down there and are willing to possibly take a duffel bag or a plastic container full of goods or something like that. But donating is just as well. Yeah.
I was listening to the Humanize Me podcast that you recommended, and the episode that I listened to happens to mention communities. One of the important elements of community is the members of that community can have their needs met in that community, whether they be financial, whatever, whether they be not necessarily. Generally, there's a financial element, right? So this would be kind of a weird thing to do, maybe uncomfortable for some people, but a lot of people here might not even be willing to admit into the group the problems that they're having, right? They could be afraid to say, yeah, I happen to be more open about stuff like this just because I'm an extrovert, obviously, but some people here, you know, and I know, not that I want help, I'm not gonna, you know, I mean, you know, I need help, obviously. But I'm working my butt off, and I'm doing it myself. Some people might not be quite as able to, you know, not necessarily financially, but one way or another, so it might be a good idea to have a meeting where people just kind of, I don't know if anybody wants to just lay it out, right? But that would at least know, because what good is a community if they can't even meet their own needs?
Correct.
Right? They will leave. People will go, I don't have time for Oasis because I'm going to go survive. I've got survival to do because I know Oasis is going to help me that way. Obviously, we don't want to become a financial charity where we're just like drawing people in that can't help themselves, you know. But at the same time, I don't know. I just don't even look outward most of the time.
Right.
You know, I'm looking right here.
I think that, so this is an interesting discussion, and I need to do a quick time check.
I should do the last question.
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion that I've thought a long time about. In fact, I remember thinking about this. I've been studying this and reading up on this for almost 15 years now, and I haven't like really done anything about it, but it's been like a personal kind of pet project interest to me. Like when I got back from my LDS mission and was living here in Provo, I remember I would go on a jog and I'd run into homeless people, and I would sit and I would talk with homeless people for like 3 hours and like ask them questions about why are like what, you know, what's your situation, why are you here? Whenever I see, it's not as effective lately because like every single intersection seems to have somebody with a cardboard box and a sign kind of thing, so I don't really do it as much anymore. But you know, 10 years ago when people weren't doing that as much, a lot of times those people were somewhat legitimate, and so I would go talk with them and I would have conversations with them, and so it's really interesting to me. In fact, one guy, I was out on a jog here on University Avenue, and I ran into him and got talking with him, and we walked all the way to a park that's over by the DI here in Provo, and found out that he lived in that park. He had a library pass, and he somehow got a hold of a little portable DVD player and would just watch DVDs. I was like, so like, are you able to get a job? He's like, I don't want a job. He's like, I have a place where I can go haul crap around and earn like $10 a day kind of thing. That's enough to get me food for the day, and I can get as many DVDs as I want. So I'm good. He's like, I love this life. This is perfect. He's like, I used to do the job and apartment thing. It was just too much responsibility. That's just how he was built, you know. And he seemed to be good. I don't know how that worked out for him. His name was Claude, and he was from Germany. But I don't know how that worked out for him when it was 10 degrees outside in the wintertime, because it was summer when I ran into him, so I don't know. But he seemed to be happy, and so, you know, it's something, I only say that to illustrate how interested I am in this idea, and it's interesting because it's hard, because when we talk about service and wanting to go help people, there is this want to possibly try and use it as a PR opportunity, right? Kind of thing. Like, let's throw on our, I'm gonna dog a religion right now, but let's put on our Helping Hands shirts and let's go help out these people and get lots of press for everything that we're doing, right? And not that that's bad, because I think that does help people to see where they can get help from. It does help to try and build some of that community. And so part of me is like, is that something maybe that we should be a part of? Is this a way for us to say, Oasis is here to help. We are here to, and I reached out to Mike House this morning while we were driving. My wife was driving, I was in the next seat, saying, are you guys okay? To the Houston group down in Texas. He's like, and he told me about their situation. He's like up north in Houston, we're a little bit better. Down south, the water is rising like crazy, and people are getting on their roofs and things like that. And so, you know, they're not our community, but they are our network community. And so does that lend itself to people feeling like maybe people do in the LDS church, where it's like, I can go anywhere and there's somebody who can help me, kind of thing, right? Like, it lends itself to that idea in some ways.
Well, and to a large part, we're very interested in that because we built friendships when we went to the summit. A lot of these people, like one lady is saying she's going to get her animals on the roof, figure that out. We spent most of the weekend hanging out with her and other people.
Yeah.
So as we build that closeness, that's why I like community groups. Hopefully we'll get those up and running. You'll know people in your city, your area, and you can help out. You can see the need before, you know. It's like, I'm friends with one of the guys in our group on Facebook, needs were being taken care of by the Relief Society, which is why I'm still a member. We've
But then
we've had food delivered to 3 or 4 different people so far.
Correct.
And everybody, like, I was in charge of doing the sign-ups for it, but all I did was create a spreadsheet. And I went to sign up. By the time I went to sign up, there were almost no spots left. People just signed up and said, yes, I'll do
Here,
this.
in Oasis, in
Yeah.
our Provo Oasis.
Yeah, and it's been great. It's been really, really good. So I think there's a need. People want to do it. I know when I go do service, it makes me feel good. We just got to look for more opportunities.
I think that, so even as I say, like, it possibly could be a good PR opportunity, I think there's a counter argument to that, because then you're making their hardships about you, right, kind of thing. So that's a problem. But I think that creating trust and creating a place in a way where people do know about it, I think that's something that we have to balance. And so we don't want to make it about us. We don't want to make it about, hey, look, we're here to help, and then become a drain on the resources, become a drain on what other people need. We don't want to get in the way. But how do we do it in a way that says we are here, we are able to help, and this is community that you can become a part of. This is something that can be helpful to you, right? That's the discussion. Those are the arguments that are going to have to go back and forth until we can figure out something good. But I think the main thing is that we do start trying building that. And, Tracy's going to head that up, and we're going to start building teams around it. So.
I think the spirit of it is the most important thing. Because like if you guys are going around saying, this is going to make us look good, then obviously it's going to filter to the whole group. But if you're not thinking like that, you're just thinking, how can we make a dent in the problems on the planet? That's going to show through too.
I agree. So we're going to call it good at that. If you have any other questions, come talk to us. But thanks for showing up today. We appreciate you guys.